So this is another episode of Conscious Leaders, and probably say this about every one of them. Wow, this is a really good one, but it is. And it is with Karen Stenning and Ewan Parton of Spirited Futures. Spirited Futures is an offshoot of Spirited Leaders. Spirited Leaders was as a retreat that I went on in December, led by Jarvis Smith. And Karen Stenning and I met during that retreat. And she tells a story of how she was so touched by what she experienced on the Spirited Leaders retreat that she felt called to bring this to younger generations. Ewan is one of the initial cohorts from Spirited Futures and now on the board. And he's in his early 20s and honestly speaks so passionately and is very inspirational for me. And I know will be inspirational for future cohorts of Spirited Futures. So Spirited Futures is just getting started. There's been one retreat so far, but it involves having a nature-led retreat and then mentorship. It is just a really, really powerful conversation about the power of nature, about connecting with yourself, intergenerational conversations, intergenerational dialogues, what we can learn from one another if we allow ourselves to hear what other generations are saying. We talk about leadership, we talk about practices, be it meditation, be it walking in nature, learning from nature, opening your eyes and seeing what's out there, stopping, being still, lots of different practices that allow you to actually switch off from the outside world and just realize that you are your own best teacher. And interestingly, now that I'm saying that, it's something that I often say to my yogis, in fact, in our yoga classes. It's like, I just call out poses. I give recommendations. I might give certain cues, but if it doesn't feel right in your body, then you need to listen to your body, listen to yourself. And that's what this conversation really highlights, that we have the teacher inside of us. We have wisdom greater than we know. And so without further ado, let's head on over to my conversation with Karen and Ewan. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Conscious Leaders. So today I'm speaking with Karen Stenning and Ewan Parton of Spirited Futures, which is a leadership academy for changemakers and trailblazers. So just to frame the conversation a little bit, Karen and I met at Spirited Leaders at a retreat in December of this past year, so December 2022, and it was led by Jarvis Smith. Jarvis has also been on this podcast. He was episode 10, if I remember correctly. And then Eleanor Mills, who was also part of Spirited Leaders, but another cohort, I think the first cohort.
Yeah, she's the first cohort, yeah.
She has also been on the podcast, episode 3.
And a board member.
And she's a board member of Spirited Futures.
Spirited Futures, yeah.
And then we've also had Rachel Savage on talking about Brand New Story, and that was a recent episode, number 15. So clearly we're into Spirited Futures, Spirited Leaders. And I'm really excited to speak to you, Karen and Ewan, about what Spirited Futures is and how we can get it out there to more people.
Thank you.
So let's just start with sort of just who you each are. Introductions, but a little bit deeper than the normal. I'm Karen, I'm Ewan.
Who shall I go first?
Karen, why don't you start?
Okay. So I am Karen, but I see myself, I think, as I've been trying to think, as a connector, a change maker. I started my career in the charity sector, working with kids in inner city London, working with gang members, kids with mental health issues, those who'd be traumatized and really vulnerable young people in London. And I was working frontline, but also I was fundraising and doing comms. But that collapsed in 2015. And then after that, I was very disillusioned by the charity sector and some of the red tape that's around that and the politics. So I decided I want to learn more about business and how business can be there as can be purposeful led businesses. And so I started my own events company, which I still running events, but I really, really missed working with young people. And as you just said, we met on Spirited Leaders through Jarvis's retreat, and that has been really, really transformational for me. I went on the first one in 2021, and it was all about, as a purpose-driven leader and business leader, how can you connect your inner wisdom and build your resilience in nature so that you can find your way through your business and create change. And I loved it so much. I was like, this is amazing. I said to Jarvis, this is so incredible, but it is great what you're doing, but we should really be doing this with future leaders, because they're the ones who really need the support, and they're going to be the ones dealing with a lot of the big issues that we're already facing. So Spirit of Futures was born. And then Ewan, I'm going to hand over to do an introduction now. He was one of our first participants in our first retreat at Spirit of Futures.
Yeah, so I think more than starting off on the right foot, me and Karen have a lot of mutual interests in terms of really leading, trying to change young change makers and put them forward in a positive direction. My own personal journey into this very situation here was, I was very disillusioned and part of that cohort in my education, and I felt that something was missing, something intrinsic that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but it was evident that something was not quite right, or I didn't quite fit in with the education system and what it was trying to provide to me. And over my studies and coming out of that, I met some fantastic people like Karen and Jarvis, that was aforementioned, and someone called Charmaine Bailey. And they really put me on the path of being able to deliver quality and something that is important to the education system that is currently being missed. Now, I started my own business called the SAD Initiative, and we produce workshops and talks and do them across all of England in schools and colleges on student wellbeing issues. So for me, a big component of this whole process is really looking at the fundamental aspects of what is going wrong. And I believe it's due down to wellbeing issues that are not being looked at seriously in schools.
I mean, obviously I'm very passionate about well-being as well, and do a similar sort of thing that you do, Ewan, but with businesses, because I had suffered my own burnout and was like, this can't be the way. But this whole idea of, like, it starts so early in education. We have this idea that education, the education system hasn't necessarily changed in however long, but actually the world has changed significantly. And we're trying to stick like a square peg into a round hole, and it just doesn't work. So how can we do things differently? Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
I was just going to follow up on your point about agreeing. I think the education system fundamentally is very slow moving. It's very, very, very slow adapting to the current world and its needs, and how much things have changed over the last 2 decades that I've been alive, and even before that. And I think that really everything that we are going to discuss throughout this podcast, and that we have discussed before with other people, these need to be at the front of people's minds.
Can I just ask you a question, Ewan? When you were in school, what made you realize, why did you feel so out of place, or what did you feel was missing? Were you able to identify it, or is it now only in looking back?
I think the power of hindsight is being able to give me that gift of looking back and really working out what was sort of missing. In school, I felt very lost and very disenfranchised with the world, the education system. I was always a good student. I always applied myself in the right areas, but something always felt untangible, like it wasn't quite fulfilling. And it was only when I realized them later on in the past few years that what was really missing was that deep human connection in education. It's not about just getting us ready for the world of work, okay, or further education in university and college. It's actually about understanding human relationships. That's the thing that I think is fundamentally missing within our education system.
Yeah.
That's like the power of teachers. Go ahead, Karen.
I feel when I was working in the children's charity, we did a lot of work in schools, that, you know, you're teaching children stats and facts, and these aren't relevant quite a lot of the time in when you become an adult, and if you want to start your own business or you want to be a future leader, it doesn't give you any of those skills that sets you up for those things, like even the practical things, like how do you set up a business, or how do you all the financial parts of even just your everyday life. But also the most important, I think, it doesn't help the softer skill, thinking, negotiation, dealing with stress, dealing with burnout, loads of things around mental health, relationships, all those interrelational personal skills that you need, which Ewan's just mentioned. We're fundamentally we're not helping young people prepare for the future, and now technology is going to come along and take away all of these jobs. What does the future look like? It's pretty sad and bleak.
Yeah. So let's talk about spirited futures, because that's not sad and bleak. So Karen, just talk to us about spirited futures, its purpose, and what's the problem it's really addressing?
Yeah, so we want to basically find cohorts of young people who want to be the next generation of business leaders, future leaders, start movements, start climate change activism. And we want to take them on nature-based retreats, because I think being in nature that's where the real change, that's where the real school is. So take them on nature-based retreats. And during that, every single one of those young people have different skills or different needs, and we want to give them the tools and we've got some great facilitators who are working with, and you will be part of that, and to basically help them to tap in quickly to their own inner resilience and wisdom, so that they've got that toolkit when they go out and then they start their businesses and they move on into the working world. We also want to do the next few years, we're going to be starting a mentoring program and an internship program. So we want to work with existing businesses now, and existing CEOs, leaders at the moment who want to be part of that mentoring program and create a long-term program of change.
So it's more than just the retreat, but the retreat is the starting point.
Yeah.
And so can you just walk us through sort of the whole customer journey, customer being the Ewan of the world, those lucky people.
Yeah, I'll talk you through the how it works at the moment, and then maybe you can share his experiences when he went through it. So at the moment, they'll come on board, they'll go on a 3 to 5 day nature retreat. And then after that, they'll have continuing online development. We can do this. We've got a program of change, which will be a continuing, that can just happen online. And then the plan is to then collaborate with businesses who want to take on these future change makers, and that they can go on an internship program. So we're building that internship program at the moment. So it's going to be a sort of 6 to 1 year program, and then hopefully there'll be these champions of the future.
Got it. And so it's 6 to 1 year for the actual program that someone goes on, and then at the end of that, ideally, yes, most likely they'll go out into the world, set up their own business, or start working for some business, but they're bringing in these whole new ideas of ways of working.
Exactly.
How are you finding cohorts to come in, or how are you attracting the right people? And then also in terms of the mentorships, how are you going out to target the right businesses?
we're linking in with existing charities, organizations. We're reaching out to universities, trying to partner with universities, and the businesses. We've got quite a great cohort from Jarvis's Spirited business. So we've got quite a lot of supporters through that. So like we mentioned, Eleanor Mills is on the board. Rachel Savage, who you also mentioned, she's been helping with marketing. So we've got a great cohort, and we're using our own networks, but there's been such a big appetite for this. So we haven't found that and there's a lot of young people who are hungry to create change at the moment, because there's a lot of things that need to change, and they've got we did a piece of research. We interviewed 150 young people about where are they, what are their current issues and troubles at the moment, who are they inspired by, and a lot of them are really fearful about the future. At the moment, the news everywhere, they're bombarded, like climate change is happening. We've got huge amounts of division, inequalities, and their future is really, really bleak. So when if you're leaving university or school right now, and all you're being told is that this planet is collapsing.
Yeah.
It's all of the feedback we got from this report was their mental health and their well-being was so diminished, and we need to be putting these structures in place to help.
Yeah. Ewan, can you just share some of your experiences on the retreat?
Absolutely, yes. So my retreat was in November of 2022, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And that was a really pivotal time in my life. And it came along just at the right time. So I was invited through a business partner of mine, but a friend of Karen's and Jarvis's. And I went along thinking that, nature retreat, I've not really ever done anything like that. It's exciting, it's new. Had no idea what I was about to get into, or the change that I was about to undergo in my entire life. I spent 2 to 3 days in the most idyllic place that I've nearly ever been to. Honestly, just from everything, my preconceived notions of what a retreat was or anything like that was just blown out of the water. So how this story starts off and how it continues is I met a bunch of people my age and a little bit older. I'm 22 years old. I was 21 then. So, those young people just in university or, finished their education, about to go into the world of work. And these were people that I'd never met before, had no social contact with before, anything like that, complete brand new strangers. And we were tasked with sitting around in a circle with each other and just to talk about anything. And we had Jarvis there, we had Karen, we had Charmaine, and we had Pip. And everything we did over the next couple of days, whether it was the breath work, being out in nature, meditations, spiritual guidance, anything like that, I'd never ever experienced that before. And over the course of those 3 days, I'd never had such an introspective look upon myself, the things that have happened in my life, the things that I was struggling with, all these different things that everyday people are compounded with throughout their entire lives. And just for 3 days, I managed to, for the first time in my life, be able to separate myself from that and really look at it and start to dismantle all these things, so I can actually work out what I want to do, what I want to bring to society as a whole. And that retreat completely changed my life, and it's something that I fundamentally believe in at its core, because it's trying to do something, it's trying to leave the world a better place than we found it, right? And I think for anyone listening or watching, I think that's something that we can all aspire to give in our own lives, and that's something that Spirited Futures and that retreat definitely gave for me.
So, I mean, it obviously surpassed your expectations. Can you give a little bit, paint the picture of pre-retreat, Ewan, and now post-retreat.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Even in terms of like, did you have a meditation practice before? Had you ever meditated before? What were your what did you expect to do?
No, so yeah, so I'd never meditated. I'd never done breath work. I'd never done group work like that, in terms of, you know, you're very, very vulnerable and honest. For the first time in my life, that was the most vulnerable and honest I'd ever been with other human beings. And the fact that they were complete strangers, they weren't family members or friends or people that I knew prior to the retreat, completely blew my mind, right? I think for every normal, everyday people going about their day, the last thing you think of is, you know, having the most honest and open conversation you can have with a complete stranger. I think that is preposterous to some people, but it really happens at these retreats. You know, you leave your armor at the door, kind of thing. And I think that was really important for me, and something that Ewan, prior to that retreat, had never done in my entire life. You know, everything that I'd ever been instructed, or everything that I'd ever learned or digested or understood, was about being closed off, and, you know, being self-constrained, or it was poor or bad or looked down upon to be vulnerable, right? About myself, about what I want, about things that have happened in my life that, you know, that I haven't processed, or things that were still difficult and plaguing me, right? And I was very lost at that point in time, and I really, really needed something to just help me get a leg up from that. And it came along at the perfect time for me. Post Ewan, after I finished the retreat, I knew then that I'd started that work, right? That I'd been put on a path that I knew that I wanted to go down, right? And whether it was through therapy work, having better relationships with my parents and my friends and my business partners, having cleaner and more ethical aspirations and goals that weren't money incentivized or were not tangential, right? These were all things that before, in my entire life, prior Ewan, I only ever thought about money, or what could it do for me, or, you know, it didn't matter about other people. And I really realized that throughout that retreat, and I carry forward in my everyday, or I try to aspire to carry that forward in my everyday life, is that there is love in the world. And because of that, you should do a loving act, or you can be kind enough to give a loving act. And that's something that completely changed the way I looked at of my entire life, and will lead it from that day onwards.
Amazing. And that's just in a few days.
That was just in 2 to 3 days with complete strangers.
Yeah. No, but it is incredible when you're put with individuals that you have no idea who they are. There is a power in coming together, and everyone just in creating that bond. But it's down to the guides themselves too, being there to create that safe space for you all to be able to take your armor down. I felt the same when I went on the Spirited Leaders retreat. Everyone showed up. Everyone, you know, took their armor off and was open and vulnerable. And it meant that there was so much powerful transformation that was able to occur during just a few days.
And it's not about being prescriptive, going, you know, like other courses go, right, this is what you need to follow. You need to follow X, Y, and Z, and then you'll become this. It is actually, you have all the answers yourself. Whatever you're leading in, you have the answers. But sometimes it's self-limiting beliefs. It's your own things are getting in the way. It might be that your life is very stressful and busy. But if you can tap in, that we don't need to know the story or what you're actually doing. It's about you really connecting in with that soul and what you need to do. And then you've got the toolkit that you can then take away.
Yeah, tapping into your inner wisdom, because we do know what's best for us. It's just we've shut our eyes for so long, thinking we need to be led in a certain way. I'm just listening to a book because I teach yoga, and I'm listening to a book by, I can't remember the name. Anyway, I'm just listening to something, and she was just striving to find this guru. She was like kept in search of like, I've got to find my guru. I've got to find my da-da-da. And it all of a sudden smacked her in the face that actually, like, no one needs the guru. The guru is inside. And actually, when we start following these gurus, like, they might be taking us off our path rather than actually tapping into our own path that is there inside of us. We just need to start to break down the walls and start to release things that are locking it.
Completely. You went on a trip afterwards, didn't you?
Yeah. Following my retreat, I was really sort of imbued with purpose and sort of the will to learn, right? The will to discover what I hadn't been discovering my entire life. And I decided to take a 3-month sabbatical, travel across Asia, through Sri Lanka into India, and then finally in Nepal. I lived with Buddhist monks in Kathmandu for a month, and completely isolated off from the rest of the world. And I think
talk about that a little
bit.
Right. Go a little deeper.
It's not something that every day happens every day of the week, but yeah. So I live with Buddhist monks in Kathmandu for a month of my life. Every morning I woke up at 5:30 to take part of their morning prayer and meditation. I ate rice and dal bhat, which is like a lentil curry dish that they eat every day, 3 times a day. And I lived there for 1 month of my life, and it was very tectonic in like the change, right? Being able to really sit there and look at yourself and have conversations with people that all they do every day is pray, breathe, meditate, eat, and sleep. That's it. Their whole focus is gaining that upper level of wisdom and insight. And one of the big things that I was left with that started in that retreat, but really was compounded during my time in traveling and in the monastery, was we're all looking for answers, and we're all looking for that bit of light to follow, and we're all searching for that. But the truth is, everyone is looking all over the place, and the last place that we look is in here. And oftentimes in life, that's where the answers are. If you really can take a second to just sit and look at yourself, take like an out of body point of view at yourself, that's when the real answers, and it really starts to unfold the more you do it. And it's a skill. It's a skill that we practice. It's like a muscle.
Yeah. Wow, amazing. So now your role within Spirited Futures is what, Ewan?
So during my travels, Karen sent me a lovely email asking me to be part of the board. And my answer, even before I'd finished reading it, was yes already. So I'm now a board member of Spirited Futures, a very happy board member, and being able to help Karen in any way and be able to join in with the meetings that we host every month, where our board will come together and discuss what is the plan and trajectory, things that we're trying to do and achieve, is something that I'm now a part of, and I'm fully behind it, because I've seen it from a personal aspect of my own life, how what Karen and everyone else that is working within Spirited Futures and Spirited Business are trying to achieve is something that is real and something that is tangible, right? It's something that you can help change your life with if you work with us.
So Karen, I was going to say, projecting into 5 years, what's your vision for Spirited Futures?
I just want this sort of large number of cohorts of young people from all over the country, maybe even, I mean, I'd love it if it was even in, across the world, but finding these true champions, and who, because not everyone wants to be a leader or wants to be a trailblazer, but those who do, you're on a big journey, and it's tough and it can be lonely. So we're going to start off with the retreats, we're going to start off the mentoring, and the vision is to grow with more businesses, get businesses on board as the world is changing. I think businesses need to change, and I'm really fascinated about the intergenerational model at the moment. So we've just started a series of intergenerational talks where we're bringing young people and current, like, I keep calling them elders, but I don't really know what an elder is. I'm saying anyone around the age of 14 upwards. But people who've got the expertise, the experience, the knowledge, and want to give something back. But I want to have these talks have these dialogues where there's a mutual respect and there's safe space where conversations can happen. Because we're on the retreat that Ewan came on, what I took away, which was so beautiful, we did this workshop, and all the young people on the retreat were like, the world is in a mess. Climate change is here and we've got a real problem. But all the older current leaders are looking at the younger people going, you're the ones that are going to tidy up this mess. But which is crazy. It's the elders now and the current leaders who've got the time, the money, well, I'm not sure about the time, but they've got the money, they've got the knowledge, they've got the skills. Now they need to be working, so we need to be working together in unison to make this change happen, not like looking at one another, blaming or going, you need to tidy this up, you need to sort this out. So I think this sort of bringing together of intergenerational conversations is where we're starting at the moment. I'm loving that. And I think a lot of it will be organic, and also a lot of it's going to be led by nature. I think nature's going to be like absolutely fundamental in this. Obviously we're going to do our retreats in nature, but we can look to nature for leadership.
Well, and to explain that a little bit more, how do we look to nature?
Well, we should all be looking at like the cycles of nature, like every single day we've got, for when the sun rises and the moon, and then the sun sets, every single day all these wonderful things happen from the animals around and the cycles of the year, and we can learn from what's happening from them, and we can tune in with them, and we can learn. Mother Nature is way bigger than us, and she has so much to give, but we need to be working in harmony with her. So it doesn't matter if you're in a leader in a technology company, or a leader in whatever industry you're in, you can tap into, and you as leaders, you can go out and spend time in nature on your own, and that's where your ideas come from. Sitting in front of the laptop, writing your emails or writing your next strategy is not going to be where the answers come from. It's about connecting and working with nature. Yeah, I don't know what you and
no, and I completely understand what you're talking about, because it's like we're so trapped inside the bubble of this is what the normal work world looks like. But actually, when you take yourself out, I now live more in nature than I ever have. And I notice things that I never used to notice, and I pay attention to it. It gives me little signs for how I'm feeling on a certain day or which path I should be taking. And it's like, actually, you can learn a lot from just opening your eyes and looking around.
What we're speaking now, it's April, it's spring. I literally have got so much energy, and I just want to work. Yeah. It's because we're in spring. But I know a couple of months ago when it was so dark, all I wanted to do was like hibernate, read, listen to podcasts, absorb things, and so I was like, okay, I'm working with the rhythm of the world, nature.
Ewan, what would you say your main objectives for Spirited Futures will be over the next 2-3 years?
So for me, currently in the sort of first year of tenure of being part of the board, it's really getting the wheels turning and assisting Karen and the rest of the board members in any way I can, whether that is in our meetings or whether that is doing the running or the designing for our questionnaires and our surveys that we did for over 150 different young change makers. And for me, moving forward, I will be entering a mentor role after a certain amount of years. it's important for us to start becoming more consistent with our retreat schedule. And then after that, we'll start developing, as Karen has mentioned in this podcast earlier, we're going to start developing like a mentor relationship with our young change makers. So one of the key focuses that we have with Spirited Futures that Karen's just done a lovely description of is being able to mesh and bring together our future generations and our generations that are the current change makers in that sense, right? That dictate decisions or hold these positions in these different organizations. And for us, building that model over the next few years of really being able to bring, whether it was managers or CEOs of these different companies, and bring in people that are young people that are going to come into the working world, and being able to mesh that learning and that mental relationship together of give and take and take and give and collaboration. That's the aim over the next few years. We need to really, because it's something that is lost in the everyday world, I believe. I think before in Western societies and Eastern societies, we really had like a combination of, you know, your grandparents would pass on knowledge or history or, you know, how we do things, right? And different ways things are done, and whether you know, these things change or not is fine, but fundamentally there has to be an exchange, right, where we can all come together, sit at the table and have a reasonable open conversation about what do we all want, because we are human and we all share innate compatibility with each other, despite all the different things that separate us or are currently separating us. We all share that one commonality, that we have the human experience together, whether it doesn't matter what part of the world you're from. And that's the main focus, and something that I will be trying to bring to the best of my ability to Spirited Futures.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was.
Ewan's my voice.
I mean, you've got great sound bites.
I try.
Do you have defined values yet for Spirited Futures?
We're working with Rachel Savage on from Brand New Story on creating the values, but it you know, it's a lot around unity and harmony, and but we don't want to do the regular one. So yeah, we're really having a bit of a deep dive, and recently just taken on one of the young people to who took part in. She was such an amazing change maker. We've taken her on to help with the marketing and comms. So yeah, and this is the thing, we're gonna, as we grow, we can be able to build and like take on the young people and find roles within this and create our own community, really.
Yeah. When you were talking about the intergenerational conversations, I love that you use that word dialogue, because it just feels so much better than we're just talking. We're actually like having this open dialogue between people, and everyone's voice matters, and that's what it feels like a little bit missing right now.
Yeah, and I think the indigenous cultures, I always feel like this sort of, and Ewan just touched on it, it's like I have this vision of around the fire, sort of, you know, the young generation listening to stories from the elders, but then there's just such mutual respect between the two, which I think is so lost here in the Western world. And we need to look at those cultures that do still really think about that. And I know I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was talking about how some of these indigenous cultures, when they make decisions, when they make a decision today, they think about it 7 generations in advance. So it's not like our political systems here, they're only thinking about their own, whether they're going to get back into power next. So that's how they make their decisions.
Yeah, they're not even thinking about their lifespan. It's literally what is their agenda right here, right now, in this moment. And it is good to be present sometimes, because it is the only moment that we have.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we do want Mother Earth to exist, and future generations, there to be a legacy for future generations.
Yeah. So if every time you make a decision, think of 7 generations in advance, how will that impact that we would be living in a very different world right now if we were doing that.
I think that one of an adage that has just sprung to mind that that I try to embody, and the people that I work with within Spirit Futures embody, is that sometimes I think it's for politicians and for current leaders in businesses and organizations, anything like that. Everyone is doing things for now, and that is important. Okay, we only have the present to lose and to give, and we don't have a defined future yet, but we've lost the sight of sometimes we have to make decisions knowing that we may never see the fruits of that decision. I think one of my favorite adages is an old man planting, or old woman, however you want to say it, it doesn't really matter, but someone in their twilight years planting seeds of trees and fruit that they will never taste, they will never bear the enjoyment of those fruits and those seeds. They will never get to enjoy the shade under a hot day of that tree, but future generations will. And that's why it's important. Not everything is for us now, but it has to be going somewhere towards the future.
Beautiful.
But it's really like, how can we remind ourselves of that? And you said earlier, Ewan, this is all a practice. It's all training. There's no necessarily arrival. We don't do things right all the time. We have to continuously check back in with ourselves. When you're on a retreat, it's a contained space. And so like you get that power and it's there, and then you leave and you retain it, but sometimes it drifts away a little bit. And then you have to go do something to catch it and come back again. I sort of feel that in myself right now. Like I'm drifting, and I need to just come back and remember what I'm trying to do, why I'm trying to do it. But I love that idea of like, I don't know, every morning just thinking like 7 generations from now, or finding some little mantra or something that we can use to remind us that it's not just about now.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I think you fundamentally hit the point. There is definitely it's the challenge, right? Of, you know, you can go on a retreat and you can be in that enclosed space for, you know, however long you're there for. And that's not the challenge. The challenge is not the retreat. It's actually continuing what you have learned from the retreat into your everyday life. And, you know, that's a working muscle, right? That we have to exercise every single day. And that could be anything from taking things and listing every morning or every night before we go to bed what we're actually grateful for in our lives, right? Because sometimes it's very hard to, I think we all get caught up in the webs of everyone's lives sometimes. And I think sometimes it's really important just to recenter and do something as simple as go out for a walk. If you're lucky enough to live in an area that has beautiful nature, just to really exist and think about what you're grateful for, whether that's grateful for your dog, you're grateful that every single day the sun rises and the sun sets. And these little things that we can all collectively share and do. They don't cost money. All they cost is a little bit of time, but it's all we really need in order to keep that same muscle working, keeping that same clock turning. That's all we need.
What are the things that you do specifically, Ewan?
So lucky enough for me, I'm really blessed to live next to an area that has amazing nature and good like really old English forests. So for me, if I'm ever feeling a bit or, you know, things are a bit stressful, or, you know, things, I'm deliberating on a decision, or I need a bit of alone time, right? Because the world's a bit too noisy and a bit too loud at the minute. For me, walking in nature and being surrounded by just for miles and miles and miles, if you close your eyes, this is a practice that I like to do. I have a spot that I like to go to that's up high on a hill, and I can close my eyes and all I can hear for miles and miles and miles is birds, and, you know, all the animals that live in the forest, right? Or the trees flowing through the wind, these different things that for me, when I need that, I have that, fortunately enough. But there have been times in my life where, you know, I maybe lived in a city, I've been staying in a city for a little bit or anything like that. I think having my notebook here and being able to go through things, write things out, which is a practice I never did before the retreat. That's something I picked up there. Being able to write about what I'm grateful for, or being able to recenter a thing and write your issues out, or write, you know, maybe you've had a fight, or an argument, or anything like that we all go through every single day of our lives. But there are little subtle ways that we can find that realignment. And for me, nature is the best course for that. I think being close to the sea helps. I like being close to the sea, but yeah.
Karen, what about you?
My day, every day, without, I have to meditate. Meditate is most important for me. It's taken a long time, and you know, still got monkey mind, still sit there going, what emails have I got to do today? Oh God, I haven't done that shopping, you know. But you know, meditation is, if my day is different if I don't meditate. I live by the sea in Brighton, so when I try and go get in the sea. And also being Brighton, like Ewan, I can go out to the South Downs, and you know, that's where I get restored. It's really important. And all of these things, sometimes I think, you know, are these privileges? But all of those things I just mentioned are for free.
Yep.
And so everyone does have access to these. And but what I think we need to start doing is, and one thing I'm really, really passionate about, is making sure that Spirited Futures is really diverse and inclusive. So I want, I want this to be a fully funded retreat where there's no cost involved, so that everyone and anyone who wants to be part of this, and we can get people who would not necessarily have access to these sorts of tools, get access to this.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that about retreats and funding, and because they can be you'll get a certain dynamic if it's everything has to be paid for. So if you can broaden that, get the funding, then it means that you're getting actually the diversity that you need to actually, you know, understand what's really going on out there.
Well, when I worked with this children's charity for many years, you know, I worked with kids who are in and out of prison, who are in gangs. They were real leaders. I mean, real, you know, when I sat down with them and were like, I remember sitting with one gang leader who was selling heroin, and we talked about his whole supply chain. You know, I was like, okay, we're going to change we're just going to move you out of drug dealing, but you are a true leader. You know your business. We just need to flip it around and make it legal, and something that you're not going to get you either end up in prison or shot. You know, it's like that there are leaders everywhere, and I want to reach. So I really want, as we go forward, to really find those true leaders and help them, give them the resilience that they need.
So with that in mind, what do you need? What support do you need? How can people get involved? Both in terms of find like business, I guess, as well as new cohorts, even.
Exactly. I'd say the three things are: number one, obviously, always funding. Money. Sally still makes the world go round, but included in that, you know, I want to co-collaborate. So with funding, also is co-collaborating. So with that, I want businesses and companies to come on board. So to be mentoring and to offer internship places. So you know, it's a co-collaboration together. So, and also individuals, if anyone wants to mentor, or they know of other organizations, that they know of some great charities or organizations who could work in collaboration with us, that would be fantastic. So our website is spiritedfutures.org, and our Instagram, which we've only just sort of really started posting, is spirited.futures.
Okay. And we'll make sure we put everything in the show notes so people can access you. And I feel like you need to leave us with one final soundbite.
Oh, okay. Would you like to
put you on the spot?
Okay, all good. I think Spirited Futures is something that I wholeheartedly believe in. And I think that what we are doing and what we are trying to achieve is not, we're not trying to score points. It's not trying to blame people or castigate people and make them feel guilty or vulnerable in the extent that they've done something wrong. It's not about that. You know, I think we see it in everyday life. Everyone's trying to point each other, and everyone is pointing at each other, blaming each other, and it's clearly not going to work. And the thing that I love more than anything about Spirit of the Future is that we all come together across the board. There's people from different places, different countries, different socio states, and anything like that. We all come together and we decide that, okay, how do we make things just a little bit better, one step at a time, for everyone that we're going to work with or interact with? And I don't think enough organizations do that, but Spirit Futures is one organization that our vested interest is something that is organic and good.
Thank you for that.
Beautiful, thank you.
This has been such a nice conversation. It really actually made me feel much more connected. And I was saying before, I've been feeling like I've been drifting a little bit and I've needed to tap back in myself. So thank you both for that. I think just both of your dedication and your interest in like really connecting with people and nature itself has helped me in this conversation. So I know that it's going to help others as well. We'll put all the information about Spirited Futures into the show notes so everyone can get more information and contact you if they want to get involved. Thank you both. That was a really great conversation.
Thank you very much.
Creating the space.
My pleasure.
Thank you.